जिंदा खुदा से दिल जो लगाते तो खूब था।
जिंदा खुदा से दिल जो लगाते तो खूब था।
मुर्दा बुतों से जान, मुर्दा बुतों से जान छुड़ाते तो खूब था।
Assalamu alaikum. Let's start. May I request Said Shawar Sikanda for tilawat, please.
Assalamu alaikum. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. مثل الفريقين كالأعمى والأصم والبصير والسميع هل يستويان مثلا أفلا تذكرون ولقد أرسلنا نوحا إلى قومه إني لكم نذير مبين. Translation: The case of the two parties is like that of the blind and the deaf, and the seeing and the hearing. Is the case of the two alike? Will you not then understand? And we sent Noah to his people, and he said, Truly, I am a plain warner to you. Jazakallah.
Okay, Jazakallah. Right, so that nicely leads on to today's topic, which again I want to continue with the prophets. So the next prophet mentioned in the Holy Quran is the prophet Noah. So who was Noah alayhi salam? So first of all, the biblical account. So in the book of Genesis, chapter 5, it relates how Noah was 500 years old when he had his children Shem, Ham, and Japheth. This is verse 32. After that, the Bible declares that the age of man would now decrease to 120 years, which is roughly about the size, the age that we have these days. And that there were giants in the earth in those days, Genesis 6, verse 4. And God saw the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and evil abounded. So then apparently God repented that he had made man on the earth. It grieved his heart, says the Holy Bible. So God decided to destroy man from the face of the earth and everything else. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. This is in verse 8 of chapter 6 of Genesis. Now Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations and walked with God. Had 3 sons, but the earth was corrupt and filled with violence. God then told Noah that he was going to destroy the earth and that he should build an ark. This is Genesis 6, verse 14. Then gave instructions on how to build the ark. So the ark should be made of wood and it should have rooms. Its length should be 300 cubits. Its breadth should be 50 cubits and its height 30 cubits. Now, cubit is the length of a forearm, which is about 18 to 20 inches. So not that long, but anyway. God will send a flood of water to destroy all flesh, and everything will die, in verse 17 of Genesis 6. And then will establish a covenant with Noah and his family. Now God told Noah that 2 of every sort of living thing, male and female, should be put into the ark, and that he should gather food to eat for him and for all these animals. In Genesis 7, it says that he had 7 days to complete this task of building the ark and collecting all the food, and it would then rain for 40 days and 40 nights. At that time, Noah was apparently 600 years old. And then it states in Genesis 7:17 that the ark was lifted up above the earth, so above everything on the earth. All the high hills were covered, and everything that was living had died. The waters prevailed upon the earth for 150 days in verse 24. And then the waters started to abate in chapter 8 of Genesis, verse 3. The ark came to rest in the 7th month upon the mountains of Ararat. After 10 months, the tops of the mountains could finally be seen. And then for some reason it says that after 40 days, Noah sent a raven and a dove in Genesis 8, verse 8. The dove returned, not finding anything. And so Noah sent it again a week later, and this time it came back with an olive leaf. Finally, the ground became dry after 1 year and 2 months, and God spoke to Noah to leave the ark with his family and the animals. And then God said that he will no longer curse the ground. So this was the final time that he would do such a thing. In Genesis 9, God blessed Noah and his sons and told them to be fruitful and replenish the earth. Noah told he can eat anything he likes except for blood. And then God establishes that covenant with Noah, his sons, and the seed after him. And there would be a sign of a rainbow, which he calls my bow, and this shall be a token of the covenant. And then relates in verse 20 of Genesis 9 how Noah became a husbandman and planted a vineyard. He then drank of wine and became drunk and became naked. Ham, his son, saw the nakedness and told his 2 other brothers, who then went and covered him. Noah awoke and then cursed Canaan, who was the son of Ham, that he will be a servant of the servants. But he blessed Shem and Japheth. And then relates that Noah lived for another 350 years. So this is the biblical account, but the Holy Quran differs in a lot of this. So what does the Holy Quran state? So first of all, in the biblical account, for some reason, it doesn't mention Noah speaking at all, whereas the Holy Quran does mention that he did talk, and he talked a lot. Now, of course, all prophets from Allah will first inform their people about the one God and to reform themselves and change and repent. They have to do this. This is what a prophet's for. He's there to send them, to tell them about who they should be worshipping and what God expects from them. So therefore, all prophets are Bashir, bearers of glad tidings, and Nazir, warners that what happens if you do not listen to what the prophet has said. So Noah said to his people, O my people, my station with God, am I reminding you of your duty through the signs of Allah, offend you, and in Allah do I put my trust? Must then all your designs and your associate gods, then let not your course of action remain obscure to you in any respect. Then carry out your designs against me and give me no respite. But if you turn back, then remember, I have not asked of you any reward. My reward is with Allah alone, and I have been commanded to be of those who are wholly resigned to him. Now, this is in chapter 10. The story of Noah is mentioned in quite a few passages in the Holy Quran. So from this passage, we see that his people were told of their duty by Noah. They were at that time worshipping idols. And Noah said that he is not after anything from them. His reward is from Allah. But despite this, they rejected him. So we saved him, God saved him, and all those that were with him in the ark. And we made them inheritors of our favors, whilst we drowned those who rejected our signs. See then how was the end of those that have been warned. So from here we can see that the people rejected Noah after hearing his message, after they're being warned, and then God said that he would punish them. Now, the main thing we're doing these prophets is to see what is the main message that we can learn from there. And as with Adam, where we learnt about good and evil and what to do if you make a mistake and repent. So from the story of Noah, we learn about how people have turned away from God and worshipped other things. From there, then they became immoral. And then God sends them a prophet to guide them back to the truth. But what if they continue to reject that message? So finally, Allah will punish them. So it's again giving this message of the importance of worshipping Allah and what will happen to the people if they become immoral and wicked and move away from God. So therefore, the story of Noah is a classic story of how Allah punishes the wrongdoers. And that's the main message that we get from the story of Noah. Now, in a different chapter, chapter 11, verse 26, the Holy Quran mentions that Noah was sent to his own people and was a plain warner to them. He informs them to worship only Allah. His people then rejected him and mocked him, that he is a nobody, a liar, and only the poor and weak follow him. The dispute was for a long time. So again, this is important to understand. In another passage in chapter 23, verse 25, it states, "And if Allah had so willed, we could surely have sent down angels with him. We have never heard of such a thing among our forefathers." So it shows that even in those very early times, their belief in the angels existed. Now, normally when it says in the Holy Quran of sending down of angels, it means a punishment. As if Allah sent angels, then obviously they'll have to look like men. So Allah only sends prophets to guide the people, not angels. So the angels, sending down angels means a punishment from Allah. Now again in verse 25, it says that he is only a mere man like ourselves. Now again, this is a very common objection. The disbelievers look to find ways to reject a prophet and look down on the prophet. And they say that why? Why should we listen to him? So again, they say that he seeks to make himself superior over you. So another objection that is that they have this superiority complex, that the leaders feel that the prophet is trying to take away their leadership. We see this very common in the Holy Quran. And so they look at the prophet that who is this person? He's a nobody. He desires position. He wants to be someone. And they fear that the masses may listen to him and so turn against him. So it's all about losing the power. That's what they don't want to do. So again, they say that we never heard of such a thing amongst our forefathers. Now, as Noah was the next prophet after Adam, alayhi salam, then there was no previous history of a prophet coming as a warner, a Nazir. Therefore, they questioned that why Noah has come to warn them against what their fathers had worshipped. In the next verse, again, the objections are continuing, that he is only a man stricken with madness. Wait, therefore, concerning him a while. So again, another common objection. To justify rejecting a prophet of Allah, they will make a character assassination to discredit him and ensure that the masses do not listen to him. They will say that he's mad. So why? Why should we listen to him? So from these verses, we see that the opponents have brought 6 objections to reject Noah's message. The first is that he's only a man like themselves, that he desires leadership, that no angel has descended from heaven to testify his truth, that he went against what their forefathers had been worshipping, that he was a madman, and that he will soon come to grief. In fact, all the prophets faced the same sort of objections from man. In chapter 23, verse 27, it continues to say that then Noah said, O our Lord, O my Lord, help me, for they have treated me as a liar. So whilst in the Quran, certain verses seem to come very quickly after the Prophet giving the message, actually it's a lot of time would have passed. The Holy Quran is not a history book, it's giving out a message, and that's what we need to understand. So it's trying to inform us what happened, and no need to go into the long, winding debates that was going on. So Noah, like all prophets, would have kept trying different ways for the leaders to understand his message. But the more he tries, the more further they become in their rejection. And it's only after trying all avenues to convey the message that they will finally reject him. And so he turns to Allah for more help. The prophets, of course, they never want to punish their people. They want the people to listen to them and change. And so they are hoping and praying that the people will accept that message. But they have to give a warning of the consequences of what will happen if they continue the direction that they're following, the immoral path, and because they're rejecting of God. So what will happen then? And so it's only after a long time, when there's no sign of any change, that finally they will call on God for help. So none will believe in him except his followers. This is what Allah is declaring to the Noah. And then we see that in chapter 71, verses 22 to 27, therefore it states that they did not listen to him, nor did they give up their idols, and that they led many people astray. And so after this, then Noah prayed for Allah to help him and punish them, as they will continue to lead people astray and be sinners. Now, some people object that why Noah was praying to Allah for them to be punished. But as I said, this was after a long time. And because they hadn't given up their idols, they're leading people astray. And so finally, he's asking for Allah's help. And that help obviously comes in punishment. Now, in the Holy Quran, chapter 11, verse 38, Allah informs Noah to build an ark and that the wrongdoers will be drowned. The chiefs, when they see Noah building this ark, they mock at him. And Noah warns them that they will be punished and disgraced unless they change their ways. Now, the prophets are known for having a good, truthful character. They never lie and are not known as liars. Allah always protects his prophets from any such weaknesses. And this is something which we'll try and cover in these prophets, because unfortunately, man always tries to show that they're liars. As for Noah, he was also known for being truthful. But it was only after announcing his mission that his people turned away from him and started calling him liar. Otherwise, before that, of course, they knew that he was a very honest, truthful person. They knew he didn't go around lying. Okay, there's still a lot more to talk about, but at this point, I'm going to open it up for yourselves for any comments or anything you want to ask about this. As I said, we will be continuing this afterwards, but for now, if there's anything anybody would like to say, now is your chance to say something. Otherwise, afterwards, again, there will be another opportunity. So has anybody got any comments at this stage or any questions they'd like to ask? If not, we'll continue. Okay, seems everybody's quite happy so far. Zaid, anything?
Jim, so I just wanted to ask, when you were talking about what it was mentioned in the Holy Bible, the biblical, basically, it said basically, Hazrat Nuh alayhi salam's his age was 900 years. I'm sure it's something like around about something like that. What is what is the Islamic point of view on his age? Okay, does the Quran say anything?
We will be covering that a bit later on. So
okay,
remove the question. If you're still not satisfied, ask me again at the second point that we ask questions.
Okay, Jazakallah.
Okay, right. So if there's no other questions or comments, I'll move on. Right. So in this part, I want to go through this biblical passages and question some of the things that's been mentioned there. So the first question that comes to mind is, was the flood the entire earth. If you remember in the Bible, it says that the whole earth became water. All the mountains, it was above the water, it was above all the mountains, the highest mountain. The whole earth became water and wiped out everything. So was that true? So it's a clear, first of all, that Noah only addressed his own people in chapter 7, verse 60. Now, if Allah was to punish the whole world, like the Bible says, then it seems very unfair that the other people were not sent a warner and given this chance to repent. So here, the Holy Quran is very clear that Noah gave them a chance to repent, to change their ways, but that was only to his people. So if this was really the entire earth, then what about all the other people? They didn't get any prophet to change their ways? It seems unfair. So we believe that it was not universal, unlike what the Bible says, only that that valley where Noah lived, that was flooded. But then the descendants of Noah may have carried this tale to distant lands, because we find the story of Noah or the great flood is known all around the world. So how, rather than the whole world suffered, more than likely this is the case, that people spread the tale of or the story of Noah. Now, according to the biblical account, as I said, the water covered the entire earth for over 1 year. Now, again, this seems very, very strange. So, if this is the case, then Noah was able to survive on the food that he collected in 7 days. And that food was for him and all the animals, all the pairs of animals that was in the ark. So because the whole world now has become flooded, there's no way to replenish the food or get food, fresh food. So that 7 days of worth of food survived the whole year. It seems amazing. I can't believe it at all. And likewise, according to the Bible, they believe that the animals there, they were there to replenish the animal stock, because the whole world was wiped out. So there was no animals. That's why there was 2 by 2, male and female, to restart not only man, but all the animals. So it means that those animals also was not. So how did they survive? And all the animals, how did they survive? So we don't believe this at all. We believe that those animals obviously were also there for eating. Now, again, as I said, we believe it was just a valley. From what we understand, Noah was a very ancient prophet who, as the Bible tells us, lived 9 generations after Adam and 11 generations before Adam. And his native land was Mesopotamia. Now, here is a map, and it's showing this area, and I've circled with red where that is. Now, if you don't know where that is, perhaps you do know that where Iraq is, Kuwait, Iran, Syria, and Turkey. So that will give you an idea where we're talking about, and the area where we think that Adam was. Now, Allah had told, Adam was told by Allah, mistake there, through revelation to build the ark. He and his family and his followers would have carried out this work. Again, the Bible says it's only his family, but we think there were some good people who also believed in Noah. So Noah was told by Allah through revelation to build the ark. Again, as I said, the measurements seem strange as well when we actually think about it, but still. He and his family and his followers would have carried out this work, and apparently only had 7 days. So they were very hard working if they managed to achieve such a big ark in 7 days. The followers of a prophet have to go through a lot of abuse, suffering, and persecution, but this actually makes them stronger. And of course, Noah was being persecuted, his family was being persecuted, his followers would have been persecuted. So therefore, not just a physical ark, but it's a spiritual ark that they were building and getting strengthened through the blessings and protection of Allah. So this we understand is the real ark. Now, in chapter 23, verse 28, and when our commands comes and the fountains of the earth gush forth. So we understand that Noah lived in a mountainous country where springs were found in abundance. The flood came and rained for 40 days and 40 nights. And with this heavy rain that continued for such a long time, this resulted in the rivers and the springs overfilling and the whole land flooding. Now, because Noah's people would have settled at the bottom of the mountain region, uh, obviously this is what the people normally do. Naturally, in the beginning, they would ignore the heavy rain. But with the river banks bursting and the springs gushing full water, this would cause them great difficulty in climbing the mountain. This quick build-up of water could have caused a sort of a tsunami effect and a massive wave of water coming down from the mountains and knock the people back to the bottom, which would now have been flooded. Now, the next thing was to take thou into it the ark 2 of every kind, male and female, and thy family. So we understand that it's just this valley, not the whole earth. And of course, how would Noah have got animals outside of the valley and brought them in? So again, we understand this was only those animals that was around in that valley, and also the animals which he would have needed for food and stuff like this. The ark certainly could not have been big enough. If you think about it, how could it be to carry a pair of every kind of animals found in the world? I mean, alhamdulillah, we have huge ships these days, but even these ships these days would not been able to do such a thing. All these different animals, they had to be separated, because if they weren't, the animals naturally would have eaten each other, or the small animals would have been stepped on by the bigger animals, and so on and so forth. Now, so many different compartments to separate all these animals would have required a huge ark. But as already mentioned, we believe it was only for that area, and so only a selected number of animals. Likewise, mentioning 2 of every kind also shows that it meant that a few animals were to be taken that were absolutely necessary, and not to replenish all the animal kingdom. We don't believe that. So it was practical why they were there. In chapter 23, verse 28, except those of them against whom the word has already gone forth, and address me not concerning those who have done wrong, they shall be drowned. So Allah's telling Noah this thing. Now, the expression against whom the word has already gone forth, we understand is those people that rejected the message of Noah. And so they're being told that they're going to be punished. Where the words address me not does not mean do not intercede with me. Now, means do not intercede with me. Now, in spite of that, we see that although there was a clear divine command, Noah did try to intercede. He prayed that, please God, save my son. Now, this shows that he did not regard the divine command contained in the words against whom thy word has already gone forth to apply to his own son. He thought that this was applying to the disbelievers. So this was just an error of judgment on Noah's part. And of course, he's a human being. We're all liable to such errors. As a parent, naturally, he wanted to save his son. And maybe also he was blinded by the love of the son, that he did not see the mistakes of the son. So he mostly felt that he was a believer. Why wasn't he being included? Why wasn't he saved by Allah? So again, it shows that Allah will judge everyone for what they do. It doesn't matter, even if their parents are prophets, it doesn't matter. You are answerable for your own actions. So we see in the Holy Quran, and this is another thing that we learn, that there are a few examples of the family, sons, wives, etc., being caught up in the punishment from Allah. Now, there's no mention in the Bible about Noah's son and wife being disbelievers of Noah. In fact, Genesis relates the opposite thing. It says that the Lord said to Noah, come you and all thy house into the ark. And Noah went in with his sons and his wife. Furthermore, all left the ark. So all the family went in and all the family came out. But as I said, the Holy Quran differs from this account. The Holy Quran says that Allah sets forth for those who disbelieved the example of the wife of Noah and the wife of Lot. They were under two righteous servants of ours, two prophets, but they acted unfaithfully towards them. And it also says that Noah cried to his son whilst he was keeping apart. So Noah saw his son, called him to the ark, but his son refused. Now, the Holy Quran doesn't mention which son it was. And the point it's trying to make is that a son can go against his father. So which son it was is not really relevant. But some commentators of the Holy Quran, they think that maybe it wasn't his son, maybe it was his stepson or relative. Now, Allah does explain why some, not all of Noah's family was saved. As it says, "O Noah, he, the son, was surely not of thy family. He is indeed a man of unrighteous conduct." So Allah knows our inner self much better. As I said, sometimes from our own family, we get blinded. We don't see if they're doing anything wrong. So Allah makes it very clear that only the righteous, those who believed in Noah, they will be saved. And those who establish this true relationship with God, they are the ones that's going to be saved. Now, perhaps because the Holy Quran has mentioned about the wife of Noah, that it was under the influence of the wife that the son had doubts, did not believe truly in Noah. We don't know, but just again, presuming. Again, the Holy Quran states, "And when thou hast settled in the ark, thou and those that are with thee say, Alhamdulillah, all praise belongs to Allah, who has saved us from the unjust people." Now, it's very important that when Allah punishes a people, that his righteous servants are saved. And again, this is a lesson that we learn from the story of Noah, that when Allah is going to punish anybody, the righteous has to be saved, because you need to see it's a punishment. If the righteous people were also caught up in that punishment, then what lesson are you learning? So Allah always saves, and this is a constant thing in the Holy Quran. We see how the prophets and their families and righteous people are saved, so that the people can see that this is a punishment from Allah and not just a natural disaster where anyone can die. Now, according to the Bible, Noah's Ark rested on the mountains of Ararat. But according to the Holy Quran, it rested on Al-Judi. So the mountain Al-Judi, chapter 11, verse 45, is a long chain of mountains on the eastern side of the Tigris. Now, here is a map, and this is the Al-Judi, the red triangle, and it means a place where God's mercy was manifest. Now, to show where that is, you can see a map now. You can see where Al-Judi is, I've just pointed. You can see India and obviously Saudi Arabia, and you can get some idea of, again, it's around the area, as we showed earlier, where this place was. Now, they did say that they could see remnants of the ark was found only even a few hundred years ago. Allah knows best. In chapter 23, verse 31, it says, "Verily, in this there are signs. Surely we did try the people of Noah." The sign of a punishment of Noah is known throughout the world as a warning for people who go against God. And as I said, this is the main reason for the story of Noah. Each prophet has a message it's giving out. And this is the message that what happens if you reject a prophet and how Allah can punish the people. So a warning for all people to come of be wary of this punishment from Allah. So God tried the people of Noah first by bestowing favors upon them, and then by visiting them with punishments when they showed their ingratitude by rejecting his messenger. That's why they got punished. Now, the Holy Quran, this is coming up to Zaid's point, the Holy Quran and the Holy Bible mentions the age of Noah to be 950 years, mashallah, and that there were giants around. And obviously, if Noah had his sons at 500, so they also lived to a grand old age. He says after Noah, suddenly they come down to 120. But 950, we know how the human being becomes weak. How is it possible that a person can be 950 and how there were giants around at that time? Now, we don't know the real age, only Allah knows that. But this does not seem to be the span of his personal life. So this is the answer that I'll give. Instead, we believe that it's a period of his dispensation and teaching. So whenever a prophet comes, that's a period, and then obviously people follow that teachings, and then there's a slow decline, and finally the next prophet comes. So we believe that this 950 years is not the actual age of Noah, but the age of his dispensation. The Holy Quran does not mention anything about Prophet Noah becoming drunk or cursing and punishing his children. I can't see the point of this in the Bible, but we do know that the Bible is very fond of trying to accuse prophets of bad things. Now, whether this happened or not seems very unlikely that a prophet from Allah would behave in such a way. What the Holy Quran does declare, and the Bible, of course, is that Noah was a person chosen above the people of his time, and those whom we guided and chose. So God makes sure that the people, a prophet, is an exemplar, and so he's not going to do anything wrong. Now, they say, well, okay, at that time he didn't know about how you could become drunk or anything like this. And it may have happened that he was allowed to have wine, he was allowed to have anything at that time. But to start cursing and putting punishment on his children, this does not seem to be the case. So we question the Bible's account. We don't accept it. The Holy Quran account, we feel, is far better, more truthful, more to the point, and guides us much better as to why Noah's mentioned, what is the purpose of Noah. Right, so now again, we finished the talk. So again, it's open for any questions, comments, what I said earlier, or maybe something else has come to your mind. Maybe I haven't answered something there. So now the ball's in your court. So Daniel, you've got your hand up.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. So, um, you spoke about prophets being human, and meaning that they have the tendencies of behaving like every other human, even though they have been chosen by God. And you made a typical example with Noah being biased towards his son when he had to take the decision earlier in your submission. Um, on that same tangent, could we not argue that there is a possibility that Noah got drunk and knowing what people can do when they are under the influence of alcohol, probably made certain utterances which the Bible classifies as curses to his sons?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't just a curse. He sort of punished him to, you're going to be a servant of servants. And so from then on, he was a servant to his brothers. And it was Ham that was the one that saw him in his nakedness. Canaan is the son of Ham. So why punish Canaan? Why not Ham? That again doesn't make any sense. And why mention this? Now, yes, it is true, like I say, at that time, he was growing vineyards, and it's possible he could have got drunk. It's possible he may have said some bad things, but to punish the children, and that's the point that the Bible is trying to make. Now, if that was actually true, there's no mention of it in the Holy Quran at all. And yes, of course, when you see your son is about to die, any parent would be concerned, wanting to save the child. So we understand Noah praying to God that please save my son, just like Abraham prayed for his father that he was still worshiping idols, even though he rejected him, kicked him out. He still prayed for his father. I mean, that's natural. But in this case, as I said, Allah protects his prophets. So even with the Holy Prophet Muhammad, um, he grew up with idols all around him. The whole community had idols. The household he was living in had idols. But we believe that Allah protected him from idol worshipping, that he was not inclined to that, and kept him pure and away from anything wrong. And so this is important because, as I said, they are representing God. Now, the Bible is full of accusations of prophets. Why? Because the Jews wanted to show that the prophets were having weaknesses. And if the prophets can do it, we can do it. So to justify their own weaknesses, their own wrongdoings, it seems that they have mentioned certain things, which we'll cover over the time when we're going through the different prophets, some allegations, which the Holy Quran removes. As I said, the Holy Quran makes it clear that Noah, he didn't do any sin, he didn't do anything wrong. He was an honest and just person in the eyes of God. The walk with God just means, obviously, we understand, not literally walking with God, because God is not there, you can't walk with God, but that you are righteous. And so we believe that Noah was righteous. Now, if he became drunk, it may have happened because they were allowed drink there. But to punish an innocent person, to prevent him from holding position, instead he became undermined him. He put him under the brothers and made him serve there. This is not what we expect from a prophet when he's sober. So we don't believe this has happened. We believe it's one of these wonderful allegations that the Jews were putting on the prophets, and that's why it's mentioned there. But as I said, we'll go through many of these allegations as we go through the different prophets, and we don't believe this is the case. As with many of the stories in Noah, we don't believe this is the reality. So we will question this as well. So if he got drunk, he may have got drunk, but he would not have cursed and abused and punished his child. So that I don't believe. Is that happy with that, or anything else?
Yeah, I'm happy with your response. Still have some follow-up questions because I am I am trying to get a holistic perspective of let's say God, or let's say Allah, and that is why my friend keeps on inviting me on these programs.
Oh,
And
yes.
yeah, and then I I actually have learned one thing that is common within Islam and then within Christianity is that prophets are chosen by God, but they are human. And I think that is one thing that we both agree, either Christians or Muslims, that they are chosen by God, but they are human. So could it be that, yes, there might be exaggeration of their weaknesses in the Bible, which is possible, but to totally reject the allegations of weaknesses of somebody that we say, even though has been blessed by Allah or has the graces of Allah, the graces and mercies of Allah, is still human, and so has the tendency to still exhibit one or two times in their life that human tendency. I am looking at it from the fact that it's not just about if the prophet can do this, we can do this, but also from the fact that God doesn't have a specific, or Allah doesn't have a specific criteria on who is chosen as a prophet. He decides who he wants to be a prophet in what age. And that means that every human has the tendency, every human born has the tendency to be chosen by God to carry out his message to his people within their age. That means they were human, but they are being given extraordinary grace or mercies to be able to carry out whatever purpose that God has asked them to carry out within their age. That doesn't take away their human nature. And that is why I'm looking at the possibility of, okay, did he get involved in normal human activities like having a drink? Yes. When people get sober, do they really have total control over what they say or what they do? No, not everyone. And so, could he have said certain things that in his normal, graceful nature, he would have thought twice about?
Okay. Now, as I said, you're correct. He is a human being, and human beings can make mistakes. Of course, we're all prone to making mistakes. But with a prophet, we've got to understand that righteous people, they put God first. They do everything to please God. And so for a prophet, he always thinks, first of all, what does God want? No matter what he suffers, as I said, every prophet is persecuted by the people. But even though they are being persecuted, doesn't mean that they are going to change their ways. Now, yes, it may be true. As I said, at that time, wine was not forbidden. If he's got a vineyard, obviously we know the effects of wine. But we're talking about when he's sober now, not when he was drunk. And when he is sober, why was he coming to? Okay, coming back to this, what was the wrong here? He apparently, according to the Bible, was naked, and the son saw the nakedness and then told his brothers. Now, his brothers came, and apparently, according to the Bible, they didn't look. They walked backwards and then covered him up to save the shame of the father. Now, has he punished Ham because Ham saw him naked? And was that a fault? I mean, Ham is there, he sees his father, and what's he going to do? He's obviously he's seen he's naked. Now, the natural response would be to cover him up. So there's no harm what Ham did. He did the thing which I'm sure you and everyone else would have done. That if you saw your parents naked, and there was other people around, you would try and cover them up. So why then is the Bible stating that because they covered him up when he was in a drunken state? I mean, it's not because he was drunk, it was because he was naked. Because they covered him up, this was wrong. And then from then on, while he's still sober, now he is punishing his son that because this is what your father did, I'm going to punish you. You now have to serve your uncles. And that's when he's sober. So I don't see any point to this. And I don't believe this is how a prophet would behave. A person who wasn't righteous, maybe they can do such things. But a righteous person will be constantly thinking, will God be pleased with what I'm doing, what I'm saying? And would God be pleased with the action of Noah? Would that be sending a good example to people? So, no, I don't believe this is true. And I don't believe it actually happened that way. But of course, we don't know. It was a long, long time ago. We can only go by what the holy books say. Now, as I said, the thing with the Holy Quran is that it removes many of these allegations that's made against the prophets. That's what we're going to be showing in this section about prophets. And so this is one of the allegations that did Noah become drunk? Did he do this thing to these people? Why did he do it? What is the logic? There should be some lesson to learn. I can't see any logic behind the behavior of Noah. And it's not a thing that I would do, I'm sure you would do, or anybody else who has helped you. And then because they've helped you and covered up your nakedness, you punish them. It doesn't make any sense at all. So this, I believe, is a false allegation to show weakness to the prophet. I don't really believe it happened. And the Quran, which has come later on to remove all these allegations, Quran says, God says that he was a righteous person. There's no indication that he did anything wrong at all. But I say Allah knows best. Okay, there's another hand up. So yes, I presume that's Toby, is it maybe? You got something you want to say?
Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome, Islam.
Maulan Saab, this is Toby here.
Yeah, yes. You got a question?
Sorry, yeah. Yeah, exactly. This is Toby here. Personally, I will also introduce myself as Ahmadiyya Muslim convert. Thank you very much for a very impressive presentation. My simple question was going to be on similar in the line of what you've been actually teaching. The second question may be a little bit vary, but yeah. The first one is, do we know whether this prophet Noah, these two girls, their mother was still alive? If not, no problem. The second one is about...
Let's tackle that one. Sorry, I'm confused. What do you mean, when was the mother alive and what two girls?
The girls who, those girls who made the father to drink.
Okay, you're mixing maybe up with the prophet Lot, which we haven't done yet. Noah, according to Noah, according to the Bible, it says that after the flood, he then became a sort of fireman. And part of what he's farming was vineyards. He made vineyards. And obviously with vineyards, there's grapes. And so he then started drinking some of that. He became drunk, and his sons, not his daughters, his sons saw, or one son saw him naked. And when he saw him naked, he went to the other two sons. There were three sons. He went to the other two sons, and they went and got a cloth to cover him up. So those two sons, it says in the Bible, they didn't look at Noah's nakedness. They walked backwards, sort of thing, and then just sort of covered up without looking. When Noah woke, again, there's no indication that anybody told him what had happened. It just indicates that when he awoke, he knew what happened. And because apparently his son Ham saw him naked and then told his brothers, that's the reason he started becoming abusive and cursing him, or not even him, cursing his son. So that's what I'm saying, that it doesn't make sense logically that what he should have done was he'd be very happy that his son obviously has covered him up, and somehow he became naked. It may be like he lost his senses, who knows? But his son has done a good thing by covering him up. So this is what I'm saying, that it doesn't make sense. I can't understand it. That why would you be angry with someone who's done a good thing for you, and then go and when you're sober, then go and punish that the son of that person, not even him, his son, that you now have to be a servant to your uncles. So that's what I'm saying. But the daughters, we'll get onto that later with Lot. I think you're referring to that the daughters when they got him.
I think Moran, you have answered. That is exactly what I was asking. Thank you. And the second one is, yes, of course, prophets of God do not make mistakes, but can God make mistake? And I'm referring this to the instance that Adam made a mistake, and God left Adam, and then God punished to bring a sin on innocent people. Maybe that is not for this, but I just wanted, if a prophet can be a little bit doubtedly for one reason, and which I think it's not, but can God also make the same mistake to punish the generation who has not done any fault?
Right. I mean, we talked about this last week, that the Holy Quran, again, with this allegation of the original sin, that Holy Quran is very clear that Adam didn't make any sin. He forgot at that time. And that may sound a weak thing, but everything is judged according to your intention. So it means then that Adam, at that time, he had forgotten that he was not meant to eat the apple. And so he didn't on purposely go against God. And if he didn't on purposely go against God, he didn't create or didn't sin. And then, as we said last week, then sin to be transferred. This is not a teaching from Jesus. It's not a teaching from the Jews. It's not a teaching from the Muslims. You can't, according to what our understandings are, sin cannot be transmitted. Every person will be judged for his own self. And coming back to Noah now, with his son, that his son was separated from Noah. He decided not to go into the ark according to the Quran. And Noah said, come on, we'll save you. He refused. So then the flood overtook him, according to the Holy Quran. Now, in this case, again, is showing that everyone is answerable for their own selves. That Noah, of course, loved his son. He wanted to save his son. Maybe he knew he was weak. Maybe he got clouded over and didn't see the weaknesses, whatever. But still, of course, a father's love for the son is there. But God is making it very, very clear that everyone is answerable for their own actions, not the actions of the father. So the father, alhamdulillah, is a prophet. He's pure. But the son will be answerable for his own actions. And the son, like the rest of them, he did not come into the ark. So why didn't he come into the ark? It means then that he maybe did not set the prophet. And this is what I'm saying. There are incidences where it may happen that the family of a prophet don't accept him. Why do they? It's up to the person. everyone is answerable for your own actions. So it's up to you whether you accept your father to be a prophet or not. So in this case, what the Holy Quran is indicating is that the father had, the son had some doubt, and that's why he didn't listen to his father. And even though the father was saying, "Look, God has told me everyone's going to be killed in this flood," the son, for some reason, did not listen and decided to make his own way up the mountain to save himself. So it means that there's doubt. He didn't really believe in his father and the message of his father. So that's what the Holy Quran has pointed out again, giving a message that this is sometimes happens, that everyone is answerable for their own actions. So just because you belong to a father, and coming back again to Lot as well, the wife of Lot apparently again was caught in the punishment, refused to accept Lot. So these are examples being used that there can be members of the family, wives, children, who may not accept the prophet. Doesn't mean the prophet's wrong, just means that everyone, it's up to them whether they want to accept or not. So just because you belong to that family doesn't mean that God's going to force you to become a believer. You've got to choose to become a believer. And so the example here of uh, Noah's son and wife, there's no mention of the wife, just says that the wife was disobedient. So it seems that they did not truly believe in Noah. So that's the message that's coming across. And like I say, our understanding of all these mentioning of the prophets of the old is to learn from these prophets and to learn from the examples what happened. And there's a message being given out. So these are some of the messages, as I try to point out here, from Noah, what we can learn from the Noah. And one of them is, again, that everyone is answerable for their own actions. So a child can be punished, a wife can be punished, but God will save the righteous. And that's what God's making it very clear. Those that are righteous, they will be saved. So if these were not saved, it's because they were not righteous. I hope that's explained that. Okay, so anybody else got anything they would like to say? Any comments? Does anybody have any concerns about whether it was just the valley or was it the whole earth, or has that been made clear?
Rob, so I just wanted to ask, when it was mentioned about the days, how many days the rain lasted, what is the Islamic point of view or Quranic point of view? Is there any reference to that? Would you know?
Well, again, it's strange. That's what I was pointing out, that first of all, the biblical account is 40 days and 40 nights. But then it goes on and on and on. And a whole year and a month, this flood was there. Again, it doesn't make sense. How could they survive for such a long time without any food? They couldn't replenish the food. That food that they stayed there is meant to feed not only the people, but all the animals and things like that for a whole year. And why it took so long for the water to abate, it doesn't make any sense. So as far as we're concerned, it was 40 days and 40 nights. And after that, again, according to the biblical teachings, it doesn't make sense. After 40 days, Noah sent out a bird. The bird brought back the olive branch, which indicated now there was some sign of life. And yet it then goes on to say, well, no, there was months and months and months and months before there was any sign of life. And then only after nearly a year, finally, the waters came down enough where they could come out. So again, the biblical account doesn't match up. It's strange that it's saying one thing and then it's saying a contradiction to it. So we don't believe a whole year. It's not practical. It couldn't have happened. We believe it's just 40 days, 40 nights. Daniel, you've got your hand up again. You've got something else you'd like to add?
Yes, I've got my hand up again. Thank you for the opportunity. So, I um, I have had opportunity to read a little bit about flooding,
Mhm.
and then we know that sometimes, depending on the area that is flooded, um, and other factors, the flood waters could stay for weeks or months. Um, from that perspective, I would like to ask: does the Quran the Holy Book, deals with actual figures, or there are some parts of the Holy Book that symbolizes what happens. Because um, I know when it comes to such ancient literature, we're looking at timeline. These wouldn't fit into modern day timelines. That is one. Two, some of these writings were figurative to try to create a certain impression or to make us understand what was happening better. So the the contradictory statements of let's say a whole year long before there was a sign of life, or it wasn't up to a year before there was a sign of life, could it just be as a result of the timing in which that account was written, uh, and also and the fact that some of these, for example, I have grown up knowing that when the Bible says 40 years in the desert or 40 years, it these cannot be confirmed actually as actual 40 years, but they are just supposed to make you understand the length at which God had his people roaming in the wilderness. So that means that the Bible acknowledges the fact, or Bible commentary acknowledges the fact of figurative statements to try to make people to understand the situation or the context in which whatever situation was. So if we evaluate it from a different perspective of actuality of dates, actuality of time, then I think that we will be getting the concept of the message wrong.
Right. Okay, that's very good. I mean, this is what we try to do. We try to understand not the message and take it literally, but what's the underlying message that's trying to give out. Now, concerning dates, as I said last week, I don't know if you was present, where God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh. Yom, a day, according to Islam, is a period of time. It could be thousands of years. And so we believe that these were 6 periods of time that God created. And as I pointed out last week, that the sun was only created on the 4th day. So it couldn't be 24-hour day that we know, because the sun wasn't even created. Now, coming to this sort of thing, well, the 40 years again in the desert, there was a purpose behind that. We'll get on Moses later on, but obviously, what again, the main thing we understand from there was that those people had to pass away, and a new generation came up, and they were then ready to go into the promised land, where the old people were not really ready. So that wandering did take a long time. How many actual years? That's something else. But generally, some things like Moses going up the mountain for 40 days, it's possible, it's fine. In this particular case with Noah, it doesn't make any sense. If we're reading and trying to understand what it's trying to say, that the whole world was completely surrounded, there was only water. Now, if that was the case and Noah was floating away over everything, 40 days is one thing, but a whole year of doing that, how was he going to survive? There was no way to get any fruit, any food, anything to survive for that long. And yet he had to feed not only his own family, but for the children, for the animals, and so on and so forth. Now, as I said, the Holy Bible says 40 days and 40 nights. That can be logically. And of course, yes, it will take some time for the water to go down completely. But still, I mean, it's talking about how the ark rested. And again, still it seemed to be indicating that it didn't come out. The ark had reached, settled on a mountain, but it still didn't come out until God told them to finally come out. Whereas logically, it doesn't seem to be the case. So when we try to get the underlying message here, we don't know the dates, but obviously we can't take it literally, like you say, for 1 year. That just doesn't make any sense. How long it actually was, Allah knows best, but 40 days, 40 nights, that can seem to make some sense. But what I'm trying to show here is that the biblical accounts are contradicting themselves, which doesn't make any sense. This whole period of so long before the water abated. As I said, as far as we're concerned, our understanding was that it was only in a valley. And so in that particular valley, it got flooded. And it doesn't necessarily mean, obviously, the water went over the mountain tops, but the valley got flooded and the people died there. So at that point, of course, Noah could have stayed less than, well, it says the water stopped raining after 40 days. So maybe he was stayed on the boat for 40 days while it was stopping, the water was stopped, still raining. But once the water had stopped, then obviously he would have come out and got some food and things like that. So the message we're trying to show here is that, as I said, if it was true that this happened, Noah would have spoke to his own people. Why was God punishing the whole world? That again doesn't make any sense. Prophets only come for their own particular people and give the message. To punish other people, even if they were bad, God should have sent prophets to those particular people. So we think that it's only in that particular valley, the people to whom Noah was giving the message to, they're the ones that got punished. And obviously the punishment was a tsunami, a flood. Now, in present time, we've seen, I think about 10, 15 years ago, a big tsunami, which caused flooding for Indonesia, Pakistan, India, many other countries. Many people died. So we see that this natural disasters of floods and things like that can cause loss of life, loss of property and things like that. So this is a way that we understand that when God punishes, it's always a natural disaster, earthquake or volcanic eruption or floods and things like that. But the main message that we're understanding is not the actual punishment, but how the people reacted. That's what we're getting from Noah, that Noah tried to give the message to the people. They rejected the message. And so finally, after a long time, God punished them. So how long Noah was floating on the water doesn't really make much difference. But I'm just saying that when we compare 40 days, 40 nights, that will be fine. But once it starts going to a whole year and 10 and 1 month, and still they haven't come onto land, that we will question that doesn't make sense logically. So we can only go by logic. I don't know is best what was the reality. Okay, we have gone over time. So is there any other questions anybody want to ask, or shall we finish it there? Okay, so I will try and continue with the prophets because I find it quite interesting. I'm learning a lot from it myself. I hope you're enjoying learning about the different prophets and trying to give what message each prophet was giving out. So hopefully, inshallah, we'll continue this. But we might cover some other topics if people need. So as I said before, if anybody's got any particular topic that they want to know, we can do that as well. But I also want to try and cover these 24 prophets that was mentioned in the Holy Quran. Right, so let's finish for today, and please join me in silent prayer. Okay, Bismillah. Amin. Okay, assalamu alaikum.